Hello, I'm John Wilson. Welcome to This Cultural Life, the Radio 4 podcast in which I ask leading creative figures to reveal key moments and cultural works that fired their imagination and had a profound impact on their own art. My guest is Tracey Emin, an artist who's always put her own life at the centre of her work. In drawings, paintings, videos, sculptures and installations, she tells very personal stories. We met in a radio studio in BBC Broadcasting House. Tracey, welcome to This Cultural Life.
Thank you.
Your life has always run all the way through your art, but when did the art start?
The art thing took off at school because I missed so much school. I stopped going to school when I was about 13 and I had to go back when I was 15. I went back for 3 months and I had to do 3 days a week by law. Otherwise my mum would have been in trouble with social services and things. I just did whatever I wanted to do in art. And I think that's what it was really. It really sort of, it become me, if that makes sense, in a serious way. And I think because the teachers took me seriously and trusted me, that was like quite a fantastic thing at the age of 15 when no one else did and I didn't have much else to hold on to at the time. And I think if I hadn't have done art at school, I think God knows what would have happened to me. No idea.
This was Margate, where you grew up. Was there any access to museums, galleries, culture?
No. See, I didn't even know art museums really existed. They were something like, in my mind, when I was very young, an art museum was where the Mona Lisa lived or something. It wasn't somewhere where you could go. But saying that, when I was very young, we used to spend time in Turkey. I went to Topkapi Museum and to, the Hagia Sophia and the Blue Mosque in Istanbul. So I had this sort of idea of this other kind of culture, but it was part my culture because I was half Turkish. It wasn't to do with art and it wasn't to do with culture. That was just like things that existed in the world. And I remember always being completely, totally spellbound by John the Baptist Hand. And that was in Topkapi Museum. And when I was little, and then when I went back to Istanbul as I was older, doing different things, I always used to go to Topkapi and look at John the Baptist Hand because I thought it was fantastic.
And tell us something more about that background. You say your father was Turkish, you were living in Margate. Your parents were running a hotel, weren't they?
Yeah, they had a hotel. My dad, being Turkish Cypriot, he came to England in 1948. He came on a £10 ticket, so it wasn't just West Indian people that came, it was people from all over the colonies. And Cyprus was one of them. And my dad came here in 1948 and he was on his way to Australia to see his cousins, and he stopped off in England and his cousins sent him a telegram saying, "Don't come to Australia, you won't get in, your skin's too dark," because they had the whites only thing up until about 1956. My dad's really dark skinned because my great grandfather was from the Sudan and he was a slave in the Ottoman Empire.
Have you always known that?
Yeah. My background is not Anglo-Saxon and I've never been brought up in a sort of Anglo-Saxon way, really. And so my dad, all his friends said, "Emin, come down to Margate. It's just like the Mediterranean." And this was like in about 1968. So my dad went down to Margate and bought all these properties and joined them together and made this hotel. And my mum and dad weren't married. And my dad spent 3 days with us and 3 days with his wife. And we always say 1 day somewhere else. And then when there was the big recession hit in about 1970 or whatever it was, my dad lost everything, absolutely everything. And my mum, not being married to my dad and being dependent on my dad, she lost everything too. And then we went... my dad didn't sort of really help us. My dad sort of kind of just vanished off the scene for a while. And we went and squatted in a cottage. So that was in the 70s. And my mum then, from owning a hotel, worked at a hotel. She was a chambermaid. So it was really strange kind of thing, reversal of fortunes. And and so we went from having lots to having nothing, so almost overnight.
But initially, I think you studied fashion, didn't you?
I left school at 13, went back when I was 15, left when I was 15. As soon as I was legally able to leave school, it was on the 1st of May, I think, I left. I moved to London with a holdall with 2 David Bowie albums and some clothes, and I got a job in a clothes shop.
At 15?
Yeah. And then I stayed in a squat in Warren Street, and a lot of very well-known creative names came from that squat, and they all went to art school and everything, and I wanted to go to art school, but when I went back to Margate, and I was homeless, completely homeless. My mum wasn't there anymore. We didn't have a house or anything, and I had to live in DHS bed and breakfast. I was like 17. And that was probably one of the lowest points of my life, being completely homeless and having food vouchers. And I went to the job thing, and I said I want to be an artist. And they said, well, you haven't got any O-levels or A-levels. So what I did was I applied to foundation course at Medway College of Design and lied on the form. I said I had O-levels, and I got an interview and I got in, and then as I was going out the door they said, leave your certificates with the office. And I said, what certificates? And they said, I couldn't lie. I could lie on the paper, but I couldn't lie to their faces. I said, I haven't got any.
You had no qualifications?
None, no. So they said, what's in that basket? And in the basket, I had all these clothes that I'd made myself. So I showed them all these clothes, and they said, would you like to do fashion? And I said, well, okay. I didn't really want to do foundation course. Stephanie seemed better than nothing. But actually, it wasn't. I hated it. So I wanted to do fine arts. So I heard Joe Strummer on the radio talking about Sir John Cass School of Art, and the fact that you could go there with no qualifications. You just showed your portfolio and it was £1 a year. So I went to Sir John Cass for an interview, and I got in to do the foundation course, and then they said that I was wasting my time, I should do a degree. They wrote me a glorious reference, did my degree at Maidstone, and I just loved it. I excelled and I got a first. So my first qualification, it was a first class degree.
Well, we've asked you to talk about the key moments of your life and the most important artworks that have had a profound effect on your own creativity. And the first one that you've chosen is a painting, one that you saw at the Tate.
Yeah, the Rothko painting, pink and yellow. I was 22 when I first went to the Tate, and I was with some friends, and I pretended that it kind of wasn't my first time. And then I was walking through, and then I came across this Rothko painting, which I, of course, didn't know it was Rothko. And I was just staring at it, and there was a bench, and I sat down and I sobbed and cried looking at this painting. It was, to me, it was like the most amazing thing. It was like looking at either the most beautiful sunset or but I felt it. I felt this painting shake. I felt it tremored. It wasn't standing still for me when I looked at it. I could feel it vibrate, and I didn't know anything about Rothko. And I didn't pursue anything about Rothko afterwards. It was only later when I did find out about Rothko and read about Rothko, I thought, oh my God, how? And then I realised something very early on, that true art, should resonate, should make you feel. It's not a picture, it's not a thing, it's not an object. It is a true entity, a true thing that has energy, that comes from somewhere. That's what makes it art.
But if you talk to people in the street and ask who Tracey Emin is, they will probably associate you with My Bed, or the other work, The Tent, which is called Everyone I Ever Slept With, 1963 to 1995. Do you think the painting has been overlooked?
No, I think I've been overlooked. I don't think the painting's been overlooked. I think I've been overlooked. I think people didn't understand the seriousness of my work over the last 20 years. I think they just thought I was some sort of narcissistic, deranged, screaming banshee. 20 years ago, I was accused of being narcissistic and moaning about myself, when I wasn't. I was still am making work about rape, making work about abuse, making work about heartbreak, making work about, it's something for everybody to look at and go, oh my God, let's talk about this subject. Let's open this up. And I've always been doing this. And I think now because of, you know, a lot of like Me Too and all these different women's things, and people have had to start to listen, and industry and commerce has had to start to listen as well. I think now more people are starting to look at my work and go, oh my God, you know, she wasn't moaning. I was actually talking about really serious issues.
Over the last year or so, you've been incredibly ill. You've undergone several operations.
No, I went one operation.
Was it one?
One, all at once.
But a lot happened in that one operation.
Yeah, a lot happened, yeah.
How has that experience influenced the way you work and the sort of work that you've made in recent months, do you think?
Well, first of all, I haven't made hardly any work in the last year at all, because I physically couldn't stand up. And so my paintings are really robust and really physical. I mean, like really charged up, really full of energy. And it's almost like the life force, all the energy comes through you when you put the paint on. It isn't just like colouring in or whatever. It's real. So I haven't been well enough to do that over the last year. And to be honest, I've only really just started working again.
I think you said, and you probably said many times, that art saved your life. Now that science has also saved your life, has that given new meaning to the art?
No, well, science saved my life, definitely. Medical science. My surgeon was wonderful. A robot actually did all the surgery, which is quite incredible. But, you know, I think love saved me. I really think love saved me this time, not art.
What do you mean?
Love. I think I fell in love just before I found out I had cancer. And I think that made me feel... I made a neon once and it said, everything's different when you're in love. And it is. The rain is different. The wind is different. You know, when you're in love, the rain is, you know, like torrents of rain and it's beautiful coming down. You know, when you're really moody and you're not in love, it's just freezing cold, wet, horrible rain. And, you know, and same with the winds, you know, everything. When you're in love, everything is different. Everything is much more heightened. Everything is just like really... You know, you see colour is more intense. Everything, you feel everything. And I think falling in love just before I was... Well, actually, this is brilliant. I was sitting on my roof in Spitalfields of my house, and it's very Mary Poppins. And it was during the lockdown. And I'd just come back from my studio. I'd been working for like 24 hours almost non-stop. And I'd just come back and it was really hot. And it was when we had that early hot weather. And I was sitting on my roof. And I was looking at the church steeple and I had a glass of champagne. I was sitting on my roof and just with my feet cocked up on the slates. And I thought, oh God, I'm so happy. I've never been so happy in all my life. And then a few weeks later, diagnosed with almost like terminal cancer, you know. It was like terrible how my life changed like that. And it also taught me a thing, like I think almost every time in my life when I've said I'm so happy, something really awful's happened. But this time with the cancer, it was such a bad thing. It was such a shock. It was so awful that I had no choice but just to deal with it. So I accepted the possibility that I was going to die. I accepted how bad everything was. And I just thought, right, so I'm probably going to die by Christmas. I'll just put that over there. And now I'll just get on with living this bit. And I've become even more happy. I become sort of slightly enlightened, you know. I become like born again. And I was smiling. I was fit. I was a different person. My whole soul, something like, almost like the makeup inside my body had changed or something. I don't know. I can't really explain it.
So you knew there could be an end?
No, I knew there was more chance of that than there was me being able to get through it. Because the cancer was, I had squamous cell cancer, and it's a cancer that is so rapid and so fast that chemo can't catch up with it. So the only chance I had was the big surgery, and then there's a chance that they'd missed a bit. But they didn't. They didn't. Touching wood everywhere.
Touching the studio wood.
Yeah.
Why and how did the love help get you through?
because I think if I hadn't have felt love, I would have just floated off.
This is a new relationship that you just started.
Of sorts, yeah. 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 And I just think that I just think being held and being real and having something tangible on this earth. And also I'd been totally on my own for 10 years. So without any affection, without any love, without anything. So I think suddenly the reality of human flesh and everything being real made me think, actually, you know what? Do I really want to die? No, I don't think so. And so I think my willpower kicked in this other way. And because I've had accepted death, it meant that I could really concentrate on life, if that makes sense.
There's something to live for.
Yeah,
Something very important to live for.
But not, or I could die quite happily. Do you see? So because I'd accepted death, it meant I didn't have to fight death, which meant I could actually concentrate or live.
You've recently shown work alongside paintings, work by one of your other great artistic heroes, Edvard Munch. Was Munch already an influence at that time when you saw the Rothko?
Munch, I was Miss Munch, I think, in 1983 or whatever, I was Minnie Munch. Everything. I wrote my thesis on Munch. I was in love with Munch. I emulated Munch. I made these really big sort of crazy paintings out of screen ink with wooden cut sperm frames around them. I was totally in love with Munch. I loved emotional, traumatized art. I responded to it. And figurative art as well. That was the main thing.
Tracey, your next big cultural influence is musical.
Yeah, I was just like a massive Bowie fan. David Bowie's lyrics and his whole ethos and how he made things and everything meant that you could be different and you could be outside, but you didn't have to be a victim to that. You could use all of that and you could be creative with it. It was cool, it was mature. It wasn't about pop. It wasn't about... And it was about being okay about being outside.
And about art.
And about art, yes. Next bit of the Bowie story, which is really brilliant. I was sitting in a Lebanese restaurant, beginning 97 or 6, and someone leaned over the table and said, "I'm very sorry to interrupt. My name's David, and I just want to say how much I love your work." And I looked up like that, and David Bowie's looking at me, and I said, "Likewise."
Very cool.
Very cool, yeah. And we became friends. And so it was pretty wonderful that and it was just amazing that this sort of like the only person I'd ever been like a massive sort of starstruck fan of, I became friends with.
But that's what you said, 96. So that's the year before the Sensation exhibition at the Royal Academy. And so he must have been in the know to know you.
No, he knew my work.
Yeah, were you surprised?
He'd seen my work in Toronto, but also David knew everything. He was, like in The Man Who Fell to Earth when he's watching all those TV screens and everything. He was really like that. He was into everything. He'd have 100 magazines. He'd be watching this, seeing that. He knew about everything contemporary that was happening. He was totally the kind of person that had his finger on the pulse of everything. And at that time, I was like on the cusp of, with my, being like an artist. If you were in the know, you'd know who I was. And he was totally in the know.
Did he give you any advice about creativity or fame as well, dealing with fame?
When he played in Ireland and I went with him, I went to see him play. He said, "This goes out to my friend Tracey, who's going to be the most famous artist in the world." And then he played Fame, which was pretty brilliant. I was thinking, what's he going to play? And it was Fame. So, I never really talk about my thing with David Bowie much because it always sounds a bit, I don't know, unreal, really. But yeah, I was friends with him, good friends. And it was just brilliant. It was just, to me, it just made sense that we were friends. Just made sense.
But it's interesting you say about, the cover for Heroes or Lodger and then linking to Egon Schiele and, opening your eyes to new art. Did he continue to do that when you knew him? Was he a
No,
direct influence on your work?
No, it was the other way round, wasn't it? With art, he really loved my art, and I really loved his music. But he did. Sounds silly, but because I can't sing a word, I can't sing a note, and he said to me, "I could get you to sing. We could do a song together. I've got a perfect song that you could sing." I said, "I can't sing." He said, "Yes, you could," and I always wish I'd done it now. It would have been brilliant.
Was he
wouldn't it?
serious? Did he have a song for you?
Yeah, he said, "I've got this perfect song," and I really wish I'd done it, because at least I would have had something else in history with my association with him.
Do you regret that?
Yeah, I do. And I also regret not being an extra with my mum on Fools and Horses. I really regret that.
Only Fools and Horses?
Yeah.
The television comedy show. How would that have happened?
Because me and my mum were in Margate sitting on a bench eating some jelly deals, and the scout person came and asked us if we would be extras. I would love to have been an extra in Fools and Horses with my mum.
Did they know you were Tracey Emin, though?
No,
was it just two people sitting on a bench?
We just looked so cool. Me and my mum sitting there eating jelly deals and cockles. We look, they'll do, and I just, there's things in life that you think, oh, maybe I should have done that. It would have been fun.
Why did you say no then?
No, I don't know. I was probably too, what's the word? I was going to say out my own backside. That's what I was going to say. But yeah, definitely. Yep. I thought it was too good to be an extra in Fools and Horses. How deranged was I? It would have been classically brilliant, especially with my mum. So there's a thing about. So this is a serious point. As an artist, you're supposed to be really serious. But I take my work really seriously. If anyone tries to knock my work or take the mick out of my work, I come down on them like a ton of bricks. But that doesn't mean to say that I have to take me so seriously. It doesn't mean to say that I can't have a laugh. It doesn't mean to say that there isn't this other side of me. And I wish, in a way, in life, I hadn't have got so hung up on that. I wish I'd had a better balance, really.
We're going to move on to another moment that's had a profound effect on your work and has been reflected in several works over the course of your career, your experience of abortion. Just tell us how it has manifested itself in the work, how you've explored that experience.
I think when I had my first abortion, I had 2 abortions. When I had the first one, I didn't really want to have an abortion because I didn't see myself. I didn't know I could get pregnant. I was always told I couldn't get pregnant. And this is going to sound really awful. I hate to share this with the group. But when I was young, I had gonorrhea. And the gonorrhea just completely destroyed all my fallopian tubes and God knows what else. And there was no chance of me getting pregnant. So I didn't know I could get pregnant. I didn't know I was pregnant. And I got pregnant. So then the doctors wouldn't give me an abortion because they said the chance of me getting pregnant was so slim that they felt it would be wrong. So they wouldn't pass the abortion. And it was only when I said that I'd do it myself that they then took me seriously. And then when I had the abortion, it didn't work because I was actually pregnant with twins. So one of the fetuses was still inside me, and that came away a week later. In between, I got really ill and got, blood poisoning, the whole thing. And I thought I was being punished. And so it was all very, very not good. And so I then couldn't paint, I couldn't do anything because the guilt was so terrible. And it wasn't my guilt, it was guilt that was offloaded onto me by the doctor, by this person, by that person, everything. The fact the abortion hadn't worked made me feel like I was suffering. You had to suffer, I don't know. And it had a terrible effect on me, really, really morally, physically, every kind of way. And it took me years and years to get over. And every now and then I visited the subject of abortion again. But I got pregnant again the second time. And the second time the second time I'd had an operation on my jaw. And had steroids and lots of medical treatment, so I couldn't have it. I couldn't have the baby. I could have, but God knows what would have happened. So I had the permission for the abortion straight away. I had it, and it was like really clinical, and I just dealt with it or whatever very differently from the first time. But every autumn I have the same thing. I get revisited of when I would have given birth, when I would have had a child, all of this kind of thing. And it took years and years for that to wear off. But what I did constantly on those anniversaries, I made work, or suddenly started making work about abortion. And then I realised as well that it was a subject which wasn't discussed or ever discussed or talked about openly in any arena whatsoever. It was a subject which was still incredibly taboo, and women dealt with abortion. And if my art prompts that discussion, then that's a really brilliant thing.
But you've always done that throughout your work, explore these really difficult, very personal issues. What's driven you to have the confidence to be so candid in your work?
I think if I had a family and children and everything, my children were at school and stuff, I think I'd be censored. I'd have to self-censor. But I haven't. I've never had any, and my whole childhood, I had no barriers. I had no, I could do whatever I wanted. I didn't have to go to school. I didn't have to brush my teeth. I could do whatever I wanted. And it's been like that throughout my life as an artist. I have done what I want to do. I have decided as I'm older, if my work isn't going to be hung in the best museums in the world because it's about rape or it's about abortion or it's about taboo subjects, then so what? It doesn't matter. My art still exists and I will continue to make it, and about the subjects that I think are important, even if they're the subjects that you shouldn't be speaking about or talking about, because they're still there. They're within the ether, and if they're not brought to the surface, then they implode and there is an even greater problem.
Now you are undoubtedly one of the most successful and respected artists in this country, if not the world. But as you've already acknowledged, you faced derision and abuse for years for the sort of work you made. You know, what drove you on during those times?
I have nothing else. That's it. That's all I've ever done is art. It was all I've ever done. Nothing else. So it's all I know. So if the rest of the world wanted to desert me, art never did. So I stick with what loves me. And art loves me, so it's good.
And what's driving you on now to make more work?
Because it will help me get well and bring me back to this world fast. So art, again, is looking after me, taking me forward, and it's my friend. And also, I hope love is taking me forward too. So, you know, there's lots to look forward to so much to look forward to. I never had so much to look forward to in all my life. Shame it's only going to be for about another 25 years, but, you know, it's better than nothing.
Tracey Emin, thank you very much.
Cool.